Hello, my name is Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. A viewer had asked about time in reference to how I thought of it or understood it prior to awakening and how I view it and understood it after awakening. I thought it was an interesting topic, so that's what I'm covering today. Starting with prior to awakening, I would say time was a concept I thought about quite a bit. The past and the future seemed like real things. Um, at times, I almost, I was conceiving even the idea of fourth dimension and the thirds kind of passing through it, kind of like if there was a panel missing in the fence behind, and if there was a slot you could see through, just the one board missing, and a dog was passing by, and you would see nose, eyes, ears, top of the head, neck, body with legs, body with legs, tail, as it's passing by, it's changing. Now, the missing panel would give you this view of the moment, but the past and future was something that existed. You just couldn't see it. That's kind of one way I conceived of time at one point. Um, I even contemplated deterministic or fatalistic ideas where the future is set in stone. It's actually there. Uh, and so you could they talk about time travel. You could travel to the past. You could travel to the future. These are real places, but real times. They existed, and then the view of day-to-day life. So much of it was thinking about the future or being stuck on something about the past, something that had happened, and so the past and future held more significance than the present moment. Because we would be constantly thinking, where am I going? What am I doing? What are my plans? What are my goals? Yada yada yada. Constant future, 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 future. Or thinking about the past. This happened to me. This happened to me. I need to improve. You're constantly referring to past and future, past and future. Never that concerned about the present. It's like the present was a means to an end. And so you just kind of focus on past and future, past and future. And that was how, prior to awakening, that's kind of how I viewed time. Time was real, and past and future were highly significant, and the present didn't really pay much attention to it. I was too busy trying to get somewhere or get from somewhere. But after awakening, I would say there's a pretty substantial shift in view of time. Um, first of all, just day-to-day living, the past and future no longer are very significant. The now, the here and now, is really the only time you can act. The only time that you can really see what's going on. Everything, that is right now. The past is just a memory. We never experience the past. The past is just a memory. The future, we also never experience. The future is just prediction, estimation, dream, our imagination. We imagine futures, and we have memory of past, both of the mind. But after awakening, the mind is very, very still, most or much of the time. And what I mean by that is there's no thought. And when there's no thought, there's really no mind. What is mind other than thought? Uh, and so when there's no thought, there's no mind you can point at. There's nothing to say, this is a mind. Only when there's thought can you say, the mind is doing that. So when there's no thought, no thinking, you're not really referring to past and future. The most significant, most important is now. And that's kind of what's focused upon. the past and future are not seen really as real, existent things anymore. Again, it's a realm of mind, of thought. Also, there's a strong recognition of the subjectivity of time. I mean, if you took away our timekeepers, watches, things like that, how much time passes is really hard to determine. Sometimes, even with watches, we say time seems to pass slow or quick sometimes, depending on what we're doing. Scientists have conducted experiments where, in enclosed train cars with no windows, they would go on a trip and then ask people how much, but they wouldn't tell you where you're going, what speed you're moving, things like that. But, they would say you arrived, how much time passed. And there was a wide variety of what people thought how much time passed. People don't know how much time passes. I mean, what is time passing? I mean, think about this. After awakening, the way you look at this, you go, what is time passing? Time passing is a past referential idea with static markers because, thankfully for the world, we've all agreed upon determined increments of time. There's the second. And so as something is moving, you could say, well, at second 1, the hand's there. At second 2, the hand's there. It took so much time for the hand to pass from here to there. But that's all due to our agreed upon increments of time, a second, and also past referential thought or memory, remembering the hand was there and then it's there. So it's like the hand's here, but I remember it being there, and I remember it moving from there to there, and then the agreed upon time limit is X, so we know how much time passed. There's all this thought about time, but really all there is movement. Movement happens in the now, because everything's moving. There is actually nothing static. There's no such thing as static. There's nothing unmoving. I mean, you can say the fence is unmoving behind me, but that's because you're just not looking right. Because the planet's revolving. The day is moving. So the planet is turning in relation to the sun. The planet is moving around the sun. We're all moving really, really fast. Our perceived perspective might be it's unmoving, but everything is moving. Even if you took a microscope and you go in closer and you see all the motion happening in things, or you go to an electron microscope and you see all the electrons around the atom doing their thing, there's always motion. There's nothing static. Everything is change. Everything's therefore transient, temporary. The mountains will wear away, even the sun will burn out. Nothing is static. It is only in our minds that, in our conceptions of time, that we get this idea of a static now. Because I know sometimes when I talk about being in the present moment, people are like, well, if I'm really, really being in the present moment, I find moving very, very difficult. Because their viewpoint is the now is a static thing. Their viewpoint is now is static. There's no motion in the now. But that's just the wrong view. Everything is moving in the now. The now does not prohibit motion. However, because there is motion, and there's memory, then there's this idea of time. Because if there was just a single ball in the universe, and let's give ourselves a third point of view, we're looking at it. There's just this ball sitting in a void with nothing. You couldn't tell if it was moving. You don't know if it's moving. And with just a single ball with nothing else around, there's also no time. If nothing was moving, then what time passed? Don't know. But if you've got two balls and there's motion, well, now you've got an idea of time. But the problem is you don't know which one's moving. You see movement, but you can't tell. Is it ball A moving, ball B moving, or are they both moving? You might see them coming closer together, but you can't tell which ball's moving. Because you can't take your own viewpoint. Because if your own viewpoint is static, you would see a ball moving. I'm saying from the true viewpoint of the balls, and the balls not having their own objective point of view, because if a ball could see, of course, it could determine if it knows it's not moving, it could know if the other things are moving. But I'm saying if there's just two balls and there's motion, you can't tell which ball's moving. Now, there's three balls, and this is actually an analogy Alan Watts used, which I thought was funny. If there's three balls, and one was moving away, then if one appeared to be moving away, see, that's the way this is coming about is because we go with the majority. If two balls are still and one's moving away, we could decide if it's the two balls moving away or it's the one ball moving away. But in our preconceptions and conditioning, we have a mild tendency, I think, to think it's the one moving away and the two are the center. And so they wouldn't be moving. And but yeah, it's an interesting if it's an interesting thought experiment if you think about it. If there's just a ball and nothing else, what's moving? If there's just two balls and there's motion, how can you tell which one's moving? If there's three balls, how does it work? And then because there's motion, now there's the idea of time, because you can remember, well, the balls were like this, now the balls are like that. And so there's this memory of movement and therefore time. But then you go, well, how do you measure time? Well, that's when you need something else that's keeping a consistent, movement, say a second, movement on a clock, things like that. We need something consistent to measure the rate of change. And what is change other than memory? We remember things being like this, but now they're like this. And it becomes a very convoluted kind of thing. But I would say after awakening, there isn't this focus on past, where things used to be, on future, where things are going. There's just now and okay with motion and being with motion. It's I think, a very different way of viewing time. The way I view time after awakening, opposed to prior to awakening, I think it's very much different. In summary, I would say prior, the weight, the attention, the significance or importance was probably on past and future. Probably more so for me on future than past. I was always more concerned of where I was going. After awakening, the attention, the focus, the significance, the importance is on the moment. Not too concerned about where it's been. Not so concerned about time. I don't need to measure. I don't care how much time has passed. The motion, not how much interval of time passes, is really all that important. So time after awakening has become, I think, far less important than prior to awakening. Because, even in the conditioning, time is money. Time is of utmost importance to, in particular, Western cultures, I think. The very, very, the Protestant work ethic and all that. It's like the whole culture is built upon doing and achieving and the time involved, and so time becomes very, very important. And the limited time we have, the limited, and time is a significant thing prior to awakening. After awakening, time isn't all that significant. I think my view of time after awakening is there's change, and I don't really, time isn't really all that important. Being, just being, is enough. Time is, will take care of itself. But I think if you have it, if there's any questions, comments, post below. But and then if any questions or other video ideas come to mind, post, and I'll consider those as well. But thank you for the prior suggestion from the to the viewer for this topic. But until next time, thank you much.